Hello, Pirate Dave here, and it is time for another Phantom Sunday story. This time, Sunday story number 7, The Imposter, coming to us from March 1st, 1942. To quickly recap the previous story, The Return of the Sky Band, as the title implies, the Sky Band, which was first introduced all the way back in 1936, has returned to terrorize the skies over the Atlantic, this time led by Sala. The Phantom recognizes their tactics in the papers. He rushes to the Atlantic. He does track him down, but a wrinkle occurs when a German submarine surfaces and contracts the Sky Band to kidnap an American officer. And from there, the plot just continues to thicken. Eventually, the Phantom actually has to work together with the Sky Band to take down the submarine captain, but he eventually brings everybody to justice. Sala actually betrays her own gang to help the Phantom out because she's so in love with him. And even though she feels like she has no more reason to live, the Phantom takes pity and forces her to escape justice. It's actually very interesting chink in his armor as far as his moral code goes. But now we're talking about the imposter. So the Phantom has returned finally to Bangalla after taking down the Skyband, and that's where our story starts. And our story actually starts at the Morristown Jail on the coast of Bengali. Looks like we have an escaped prisoner. The guards mention Trader Joe has escaped, the one who knifed that bartender. He's a killer. He'll be tough to find in those woods because he knows them so well. It's very important. I originally was wondering, why is this guy called Trader Joe? Why did Lee Falk decide to make this guy a former trader? And it becomes important later in the story. Meanwhile, the Phantom has decided he's almost back home in the deep woods after his adventure, so he's going to take a quick swim in a local lake. But that's just when Trader Joe has happened upon his discarded clothes, and so he takes them so that he can change out of his prison jumpsuit. And of course, the Phantom realizes his clothes have been taken. Trader Joe actually spots this local and threatens him to tell no one that you saw somebody in a convict's jumpsuit. And so he even finds the Phantom's belt with his gun. So he seems to have really lucked into his disguise here, but he's really, what kind of duds are these anyhow? Wonder who this guy was, who owned them. Well, anything's better than stripes. So he doesn't know who the Phantom is. He's actually kind of perplexed by this costume, but anything will do. That's when he realizes the Gongi, a local tribe that he's done trade with in the past. They'll recognize him. They'll know that he was wanted for murder. He's escaped. He tries to outrun them, but he finds that they're running after him. He thinks he's cooked, and they just drop to their knees and they worship him because, of course, he is wearing the Phantom's suit. And Trader Joe is taken back to the Gongi village where everybody celebrates him. Huh, wants me to sit on the throne? What is this? He still doesn't understand what's happening. He thinks this is like something out of a movie. And that's when the Gongi chieftain, makes a speech in the Phantom's honor. And this is where we get the clarification. Trader Joe partly understands the Gongi dialect, and that's where it makes sense that he's a trader, right? So he can actually speak the local dialects and the local languages that the tribes can speak because he's had to do trade with them. So he realizes that it says, I think 20, yeah, I've been 20 years in the jungle. Seems like I've always heard a superstition about a phantom or something. They think I'm the Phantom. So he realizes, he puts it all together that they think he's this superstition that he had always heard about. And so he uses that to his advantage. First thing he demands is treasure from the tribe. Real original, Trader Joe. Meanwhile, the Phantom finds some clothes hanging about, and he disguises himself as an Arabic man in these clothing. It just really makes it easy to hide his identity. And he actually happens to come upon the Gongi village. And this is interesting because, we just saw the Phantom at the Gongi village. Or not the Phantom, but even I'm fooled. We saw Trader Joe disguised as the Phantom at the Gongi village. He announces that he's here to see the Phantom, and the Gongi immediately try to attack him because he's not the Phantom. He's following the Phantom. They're suspicious about him. They overpower the Phantom in disguise, and drag him into the village. And the Phantom makes a really great point. Does the Phantom's law forbid you to hunt heads, King of the Gongi? You followed the Phantom, intending to harm him. We are only protecting him. But the Phantom doesn't really take that as a great excuse. He's just seeing it as an excuse for them to be a little bit barbaric. Meanwhile, the Trader Joe, disguised as the Phantom, has moved on to the next village, and he's knocking all their tributes out of their hands. He doesn't want flowers, he doesn't want fruit, he wants treasure. And look at how disrespectful, foot on the chest of this man. And the local tribespeople are confused. This is not like the Phantom. He must be angry. He has never been like this before. We dare not question him. We must obey him. And wow, yeah, Trader Joe is really he is really milking this Phantom deal for all that he can. Meanwhile, back at the Gongi village, the Gongi are fighting for the right to take the stranger, as they are calling him, the stranger's head. And so one of the Gongi has won, and the Phantom Stranger, not the Phantom Stranger, but the Stranger, as the Phantom, is given a stick to fight against the winner, even though he's equipped with a battle axe. And so the Phantom, he asks, "What if I win? Am I to be freed? If you win, you will fight two lesser warriors. If you defeat them, you will fight four, and so on until you are overcome." Not really much of a fair fight, but the Phantom decides he's just going to throw away the stick. He's going to take out this guy with his bare hands. He just lets the Gongi warrior tire himself out and tackles him to the ground and overpowers him. And now he's got a battle axe. And so now the other warriors are not as reluctant to join in. The chief tries to, "You must abide by our rules. Give us the weapon." Yeah, who's going to agree to that, chief? Like, if you've already told him that he's going to have to fight to the death, why is he going to? Oh yeah, no, sure, rules are rules. Give over the weapon. Come on. The Phantom overpowers the next two warriors. Two heads are better than one. And he announces, "I come in peace. I'm a friend of the Phantom. I only ask where he went." And so the Gongi decides this is fine. Let him know where the Phantom has gone. The Phantom can kick his butt. So they mentioned that the Phantom left towards the deep woods 3 days ago. It's a really interesting time frame that we're given here. So the Phantom, the stranger, is 3 days behind Trader Joe. That may be because he was captured in the village for 3 days. Um, that would be my best assumption, right? I can't imagine that he discovered that his clothes were missing and it took him 3 days to find replacements or anything like that. Meanwhile, Trader Joe has spotted a girl at the river, and he decides that this girl may know him. He recognizes this girl from trading, and once she gets back to Morristown and she finds out that Trader Joe has escaped, she might recall that she saw a guy in a Phantom costume up the river and put two and two together and realize that he's Trader Joe. And so he takes off with Jane Dever is her name. And meanwhile, Jane's father, the Reverend Dever, is running after him, and he's asking his guides here to help him out, but no, it is the ghost who walks. They're not going to help him out. And Trader Joe just knocks out the Reverend as he comes up on him. And this is just, you can just see how Dever's safari boys stare, aghast. Their beloved Phantom has struck the gentle Dever and kidnapped Missy Jane. This is news that will spread through the jungle like wildfire. And this is really where the consequences of what Trader Joe has done is coming out, because you can see a tribesman gets on the jungle drums and spreads the word, and this just leads to the deterioration of the Phantom's law. The war drums are out, and now tribes are pillaging other tribes and everything. And the Phantom's hearing this. He can understand the jungle drums. He realizes how everything that he's worked for is coming down, is being torn down by this man, whoever he is. He doesn't know who Trader Joe is, or even that Trader Joe has taken his stuff, is ruining his reputation. Meanwhile, Trader Joe still has the Devers. He's taken them back to the deep woods. There's also the police on the trail of Trader Joe from Morristown. The police meet with the Gongi tribes. The Gongis let them know which direction the stranger went into. They assume that the stranger that beat their warriors must be this escaped Trader Joe. It makes a whole lot of sense. But meanwhile, the Phantom has caught up with Trader Joe. You'd see he's just not far behind. And he mentions he's only a mile away. I guess this perspective is just for our benefit. That certainly looks closer than a mile, but I'll take his word for it. Unfortunately for the Phantom, even though he's right on Trader Joe's trail, that's when the police catch up with him. There he is, Joe. Stand where you are. You can't get away. And of course, this is just, you can just tell what the misunderstanding is going to be. They're telling him, we're looking for Trader Joe who broke out of jail, and you're Joe, and you've led us on a long chase, and we're hauling you back, and no tricks. Officers, I'm trailing the same man. He's not far from here. I'll lead you to him. If you ain't Joe, who are you? Let me see your face. I can't do that, but I give you my word that I'm not. Cut the comedy. Completely understandable on the cop's part. And this is another time where, you see the Phantom's own mythology, his own, you know, his own symbolism work against him. He could easily show his face right now and clear this up and get the cops on his side, but he cannot show his face. That's part of the Phantom's legacy. And so, having no other options, the Phantom makes a daring escape from the police, dives into a local river, and the officers decide that if they see him again, if they pop back up, they're going to shoot to kill after he's already escaped. They can't take any more chances. Again, like, this is very antagonistic, of course, as a fan, as a reader, but these police officers are completely reasonable. Trader Joe is a murderer. He's an escaped murderer, and now he's escaped from them as they tried to bring him in alive. The bloodhound that they have with them has caught wind of the Phantom hiding in the river, but that's when Good Boy Devil comes up and he takes down that Good Boy bloodhound. That's a little unfortunate. And the bloodhound takes off in the opposite direction. Of course, the police assume that he's gotten another scented trail, so they don't know that he just had his butt kicked by Devil. And of course, you see the Phantom giving Devil some kisses. That's how you reward him. That's for sure. Meanwhile, Trader Joe has made it back to the edge of the deep woods, and the guides that were with him tell him, like, yeah, we're not going any further. This is the land of the Bandar. But Trader Joe just clocks them and forces them to go with him. And this is, I mean, Leafalk mentions it in the text here that this is the ultimate test. Trader Joe realizes is the final test. Will the Bandar recognize him? Nervously, he fingers his pistol as he stands before the legendary skull throne of the Phantom. And remember, each of these pages is 1 week's worth of strip, one Sunday. So that's the cliffhanger. Is like, well, is Trader Joe going to be able to fool the Bandar? And sure enough, the Bandar seemed generally convinced. They've heard what's been going on in the jungle about how the Phantom has been taking treasure, and he took this young girl and her father, and now he's making them go get him some food. And Gran just seems to reason that perhaps he is sick. He seems different. Meanwhile, Joe has decided to explore the Skull Cave, and that's when he finds the Phantom treasure, of course. That is just going to up the stakes even more. He was so surprised by the treasure, he actually ends up taking off his mask, and that's when Jane Devers walks into the room and recognizes Trader Joe. And Joe completely mentions, like, that's why I took you here. I knew that you were going to recognize me. I knew I was in trouble, and I'm going to keep your paw here. And so he decides, since Jane's father is a reverend, that he's going to marry Joe and Jane together. A peep out of either of you about who I am, and I'll kill both of you, and nobody will say boo, because I'm the law here. That's a horrifying development, right? I thought it was a tame decision to have Joe's impetus for taking Jane and her father being that, like, oh, they'll recognize me, rather than being a more nefarious reason. But now we get the nefarious reason. It's actually, the implications are really terrible. Meanwhile, the Phantom has reached the deep woods, and he knows that the Bandar are distrustful of strangers, so he tries to reason with them. Tigor, Bigon, don't you know me? After all these years, you must know me. Take me to Koran. And he tells them stories about their childhood when Tigor first shot his deer. Meanwhile, Trader Joe's still arguing with Jane and her father to marry him. And of course, neither of them want to go through with it. But being a father, the Reverend decides like he'll do it just to save Jane's life. And you see this really, really sad panel. We'll be glad to forget this nightmare. We won't tell the police we saw you. We won't tell these pygmies you're not the Phantom. And look, she's just bawling her eyes out. Of course, she doesn't want to marry this crazy, murdering psychopath. So terrible. Meanwhile, one of the Bandar has entered the Skull Cave and let Trader Joe that somebody's there claiming to be the Phantom. A stranger claiming to be me. Lead me to this idiot. So this is the fool who dares to say he's me. It's been a long chase, Trader Joe, but this is the end. And I kind of glazed over it, but the Phantom learned about Trader Joe and his identity, of course, from the police who explained who they were chasing. And so the Phantom tries to convince the Bandar that he actually is the Phantom. He mentions the Phantom's rings. Trader Joe didn't have the rings because that's something that the Phantom wouldn't have taken off when he was bathing. And of course, Gran sees the rings. Uh, Trader Joe actually is pretty quick thinking. He comes up with this story. He is an Arabian wizard who learned your names by black magic. I lost my skull ring. He found it. Anyone could do that. Now tie this idiot to a stake, the Phantom commands. And sure enough, the Bandar are convinced and they tie the Phantom to a stake. And so Trader Joe decides he's going to take care of the Phantom right now. He orders Gran to carve upon his chest with the knife the death head of the Phantom. Wow, really morbid idea that Gran's going to murder the Phantom on the commands of this stranger. Meanwhile, Jane and her father have seen the developments. They work out that that must be the real Phantom, knowing who Trader Joe is, and they rush to convince the Bandar that the stranger is actually the Phantom, but it does not work. Trader Joe just knocks out her father and clasps Jane's mouth over, and that's when the Phantom whistles for Good Boy Devil. Look at that, Good Boy Devil rushing to the rescue once again. And Trader Joe tries to keep up the rules. Come here, Devil, come to your master. And of course, Devil knows who his master is. He gives the Phantom some kisses. This Arab wizard has bewitched the animal so that he does not know his master. The animal must die. I mean, again, quick thinking by Joe, but this is what's going to prove to be his downfall. Joe fights off Devil as he attacks him. He whacks him. Oh, look at that! What a terrible! He pistol whips Devil, and that's when the Bandar. And now the Bandar know the Phantom would never strike Devil, and they immediately run Joe off and free the Phantom. And the Phantom completely forgives them immediately. All's well that ends well, and comforts Devil. That's great. But Trader Joe is on the loose, and the Phantom commands the Bandar to track him down and bring him to him alive. He lets the Devers know that they're going to be safe. They're going to be led to the coast, and Trader Joe is on the run, but not for long, as he is surrounded by Bandar. How is he gonna face the Bandar? Is he gonna go down shooting? Are they gonna try to get him from behind? I didn't mean no harm. Don't let go of them arrows. I'll pay you off, make you all rich. Oh. After all that, Trader Joe faints at the sight of the Bandar. Fainted, huh? You small men of Bandar have a way of making strong men weak. And, even after all the Bandar sort of, not having his back, he gives the Bandar their respect. Men of Bandar, summon all the princes and chiefs of the jungle. You will find that they have become lawless and have broken the Phantom's peace. If they refuse to come before me, force them. All jungle people fear the poisoned arrows of the Bandar. They will obey you. Again, the Bandar they kind of got demeaned in this strip because they didn't believe the Phantom, and it just didn't make a whole lot of sense. This is where they're getting it back. So the Bandar just stomp around and they stand up to these huge chiefs. So look at this. And they just force them to come with them because the Phantom has commanded. And all these tribes fear the Bandar. Even though they're these small pygmy people, they fear the Bandar's poison arrows. And the Bandar even track down the police and lead them to the deep woods as well. And that's where the Phantom dresses down Trader Joe in front of everyone. And of course, he strips Trader Joe of his uniform. And I love this panel. First, the evil of the impostor must be boiled from the Phantom's garb. Besides, the Phantom has no desire to put on the costume without a thorough laundering. I would not have thought of that if I were just reading it. If he just put on the costume, yeah, but he definitely wants to get the stink of Trader Joe off him. I love that little touch. And of course, the costume is back where it belongs, the Phantom in all his glory. And he's going to give Trader Joe a fighting chance. Behold, this man, chiefs of the jungle, he is the impostor. He has cheated, stolen, and killed all in my name. Put up your hands, Trader Joe. You're fighting for your life. But it is not much of a fight. We just see the Phantom just blow after blow and just go to town on Trader Joe. And the police take him off to justice. The Phantom has come into his own once again. All's well in the deep woods. And that's the end of the imposter. To be honest, I don't really think much of this story. It really is one of those stories that only works in the comics medium. Obviously, in a more auditory manner, it would be very silly that Trader Joe was getting away with, impersonating the Phantom. I do like the little touches though. When I originally read it, I didn't understand why this guy was called Trader Joe, why he had to be this ex-trader, but it made sense in retrospect. Because he has to know the dialects of all the tribes to even make that part convincing. And I did skip over it near the end when the Devers are trying to convince the Bandar that the Phantom tied to the stake is the real Phantom. Even Trader Joe mentions to Jane, they don't understand you anyway. So it is a nice little touch to make what is a story that strains credulity. It's a nice little touch to make it more reasonable. But overall, for me, the suspension of disbelief that's required to really make this story work is just way, way too much. And again, it requires like a number of people being very foolish. Like the Phantom, I mean, the Phantom just leaving his clothes out. I guess, you don't have many options, but leaving his clothes and his guns out for anybody to pick them up and take off with them. Lesson learned, right? Like, I wonder if it's a lesson every Phantom has to learn. And then for all these tribes to just take the Phantom like at his word, that the Phantom's just being this crazy, jerk now, and taking all their treasure and all that. It's like nobody has any faith in the Phantom's morality as a character. And once his morality is from their perspective, once it's eroded, they just devolve into savagery once again. So it's not giving enough credit to the jungle tribes, I guess. But for a dramatic story, that's the that's the stakes that you have to have, right? That the jungle piece is so precious and the Phantom is really what's holding it together. It's one thing to do that in a way that, is political and understandable, and there's these tribal disputes and all that. But it's another to just say, like, oh, yeah, without the Phantom, these tribes just devolve into pillaging and looting because that's really what they want to do. And my biggest contention was with the Bandar, right? Because the Bandar is such a strong tribe and they're a smart tribe and they're the only ones that are trusted with the Phantom's secrets. And I don't know. I think there could have been a more creative way to trick them, And to be honest, I don't know what that creative way is, but that's ultimately where the story loses me completely, and where I just have to kind of write it off as like, okay, this is kind of one of the filler, Phantom stories, because it's just unbelievable. Um, anyway, I don't want to keep circling that same point. I do hope that you enjoyed The Imposter. Maybe you have the same contentions I do. Maybe you don't think about that stuff too much. It's not that big of a deal, and you just enjoyed a really fun little story where the Phantom had to prove his worth even without his symbolism and his mythology, which is certainly, it's certainly a fair point for really valuing what this story gives. I was Pirate Dave. I hope you enjoyed Sunday story number 7, The Imposter. I think we'll be back with another Sunday story next week because The Phantom Goes to War was just so long that I think they got another story out there. I'm not exactly sure, but I hope you join me for that one. Thank you very much. Bye.